Tony D and Little Joan with a screenwriter's take on episode 3 of Fallout. I don't have any real footage of it other than whatever's in the trailer. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Check out my books. The links are in the description. Comedy horror in South Jersey. It's the Pineys, books 1 through 14, available at Amazon.com. Don't forget Kindle. Unlimited is free. Thank you for buying. I broke all kinds of records today for me. Thank you so much. I sold a whole bunch of books, so this is my best month so far. And it's only halfway through the month, so you guys, I got to thank you. I know, Joan's very excited. Joan will get treats. She just had one. Okay, so episode 3. How do we break this down? Well, as always, I'll do a non-spoiler review. This one's a little bit more about Walton Goggins' character, Mr. Howard, the ghoul. It's, again, okay. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. It's pretty much the same. Slightly more character development. I like that. Slightly better than 2. Not a lot better, but again, the visuals are the big showcase here. The pacing is slow, arduous, and like the video game, in that it just feels kind of random. Like in the video game, it's fine to like go off on a side quest, do some stuff, not really have much of a big boss fight, right? It's not the way a TV show has to roll out, episode by episode. So, where do we pick up? Well, first, let me finish the non-spoiler, I guess. Lucy was okay in the episode. Oh, we had a flash, well, not a flashback, but we went back to the vault to see how the vault dwellers are doing. Not great, but good characterization, I'd say, and a good portrayal of, again, the satire of who the vault dwellers kind of are. So I enjoyed that. But here's the thing. When you're writing a screenplay or TV show, anything that doesn't move the story forward, you have to jettison. Going back to the vault doesn't move the story forward. It doesn't move it forward for Lucy, who comes from the vault. Doesn't move it forward for the ghoul, and it definitely doesn't move it forward for Maximus. The only character that moved forward this episode was Maximus. Everybody else is still, I don't know, wandering around. And again, if you already know these characters are going to get together and team up, the best move is to start them already teamed up, and then later you could tell us how they got together. Or you show us the episode where they all team up and they're all good. This huge wind-up, it's not doing anything for me. You know? It's just not. And it's very slow. So, with Lucy and the ghoul, we get some of the background of the ghoul before the war. But it's kind of stuff we already knew. With Lucy, we get almost nothing except what you can glean from, the vault dwellers. So, really, what this feels like is part 3 of 8. So, it's an 8-hour movie, and we're still in the first act. We're still in the setup phase. And I guess all this stuff will pay off at some point, but you're taking your damn good old time. Again, to streamline this, it would have been better to just focus on 1 or 2 characters. And Maximus could have come in. You know, you could have just made a different character that didn't have this big wind-up, because there's a bunch of intrigue going on with him. Okay, so that's my non-spoiler review. Slightly better from last week. but it's not going up like a point. Like the first episode's maybe I don't know, a 4 or 5, depending on how many member berries you like. And again, I don't see normies really getting this. They're dragging it out. You know, I tell this story all the time, but my friend worked at Disney. We were trying to pitch some shows there, and I wrote this Bible, and she looked at it and she said, "You put enough information for an entire season in the first episode." And I said, "No, no, no. The first episode, that has to explain the premise of the series. And then we'll do other stories." She's like, "No, that's not what the studios want. They want you to drag it out." So we had to rewrite it, and then it didn't go through anyway. But I hate that. Shows didn't used to be like that. Television used to have a whole episode. And I always go back. I mean, it's an old show. It's called The Fugitive, right? So the premise of The Fugitive, a guy was framed, sort of, for the murder of his wife. Now he's on the run. He's trying to find a one-armed man to clear himself. But in the meantime, he goes into a town, gets caught up in whatever's going there. And at the end of the episode, he always ends up leaving. But during that episode, it's not about the one-armed man necessarily. You know, he might get a little clue, but it's mostly about whatever the story was from beginning to middle to end that week. Here we are still in the beginning of the show. The characters don't even like each other yet. It's wind up, wind up, wind up. Thus my complaint. I would like to be on to, you know, by the third episode, I would like them to be finding some other MacGuffin, doing some other kind of story. Instead, we're still in this holding pattern of, okay, we're rolling out this world. Anybody who watches Fallout probably already played the game and already knows the world. Are you giving us member berries? Yes, but you're also not giving us a ton of new information, other than you did do the smart thing and move it to a town that really didn't get outlined in the game yet. All right. That's my non-spoiler review. Let's get to the spoilers. Okay. So, the episode begins with Walton Goggins before the war as a cowboy, TV cowboy or movie cowboy. And he doesn't want to shoot an actor in a scene. And that's supposed to be ironic because, of course, now in the wasteland, he's murdering people left and right? So that's a good bit of contrast there. All right, put Joan down. She's too squirmy. We also established that he has a black wife. We knew that too because we've already saw him in the opening scene with his kid, who was multiracial, and, you know, they get to see the first bombs drop or whatever. So we kind of already know what happens to him. His family dies and he somehow survives. But we haven't seen it yet, and each new scene has to add information. Finally showing us his wife doesn't really add any information, but they roll it out like it does. So, and there's even a scene where, like, he goes and talks to her, and then they flirt, and then, yeah, they acknowledge that it's his kid and his wife. They also mention that one of the writers is kicked off the show because he's a communist, which harkens back to the 1950s, and Hollywood's just utterly obsessed with that. So I'm just going to leave that alone. But whatever. All right. Cuts to present. Lucy, or rather, Walton Goggins and the dog find the headless body. Right? Lucy cut off the scientist's head and took it. They find the body. Now he's still looking for the head. Okay? Cut to Lucy. She's walking along, carrying the head by the hair. Why she's doing that when she was so squeamish about cutting off the head, I don't know. Why did she do that when the scientist had a bag with him, pretty much exactly the size of a head, that's actually in the shot of the headless corpse. You could see it sitting there, and immediately I thought, Lucy should have taken that bag and put the head in it. Again, you have to make these characters play at the height of their intelligence. If you had to cut off a dude's head and carry it with you, would you carry it by the hair with the blood dripping everywhere? No. If you had a bag that was about head size, you'd put it in there. And you'd carry the bag, because the bag is designed to be carried. And you wouldn't be walking into, I don't know, say a village with a severed head in your hand. This is especially stupid for Lucy not to do, because she was squeamish about the whole thing anyway. So when you cut to a shot of Lucy just carrying the head, that already seems out of character for her. She should have had a bag. We're not stupid. We see a headless corpse, even if you haven't seen the previous episodes. You see a headless corpse. Where's the head? We got to go get it. Cut to Lucy. She's carrying a bag. You could do a shot of the bag, and that would visually establish that. So then she's carrying the head. Okay. Walking along. And eventually, we cut back to the vault where Lucy's from. Vault, it's 32, right? So her brother and her cousin are facing sanctions or a punishment for letting Lucy go. The cousin gets demoted from gatekeeper. The brother is given the job of feeding the prisoners. And it turns out the vault dwellers have a bunch of prisoners who are raiders. And they're absolute maniacs. They feed them and they clothe them, and they act like maniacs. They throw their food everywhere, they scream, they threaten to kill everybody. Now they're acting like raiders. Now that they're in a cell. Again, doesn't make any sense. If the raiders were smart enough to pull this big scam to get into the vault, do you not think they'd be smart enough to calm the F down now that they're getting food, even though they're prisoners? Part of the problem with the wasteland is you can't get any good food or water. That would calm them right the F down. Those raiders would be like, biding their time, if they're that smart. Now suddenly they're stupid. They're smart enough to get in the vault, now they're not smart enough to get out. You can't have it both ways. Also, how did they even capture these raiders? Why did they bother to capture the raiders? Later in the episode, one of the council members says something like, well, they know the intimate details of security in the vault. Okay. Well, then I guess you got to kill them. But they're not going to do that. And this is the kind of interesting thing, sort of along the lines of, and you should read this, by the way, Suicide of the Liberals, where they decide they're going to keep these people prisoners and try to re-educate them. But the vault dwellers are, they've been out of circulation too long, and they think they could rehabilitate these murdering maniacs. It appears from the outset that they can't. I don't think the vault dwellers are playing at the height of their intelligence. I think some of the vault guys would at least be like, I don't think these guys will be able to educate them. At the very least, I would say, change the details of your security measures and then cut them loose. Maybe one at a time, to prevent them from ganging up on you and coming back. I can't imagine these vault dwellers are that namby-pamby. They at least should be, people from pre-war. They should act like people from the pre-war days. But anyhow, it's clear that's going to be the storyline there. You're going to see the vault dwellers. The pregnant lady who lost an eye is on the side of the brother, and they're probably going to plot to kill all the prisoners. It's a moral conundrum that would be in the game. I can imagine that. That would be a choice in the game. For the TV show, I barely care about the vault dwellers. I definitely don't care about the raiders. Just kill them or, do something. The council's just being stupid. They're just on the way to die at this point. And now there's the other vault, which they mentioned. Like, here's the thing. They had 3 vaults. They're all together. I guess one of the other, the vault that the raiders went into, they were wiped out by the raiders. But again, in the first episode, it's established that Lucy knows what raiders are. Kyle MacLachlan was going to give his daughter to one of the other vaults, and again, didn't seem to have any communication with them until the day of the wedding, and then a whole bunch of them come across into their vault. He doesn't know any of them. Doesn't make any sense. Is that the case with the other vault too? How far away are they? They came in the vault through tunnels. Are they all underground, interconnected? There was a sign this week that indicates they were. So, what's the deal here? It's too complicated to, they could have made this a lot simpler, right? They could have made this a lot simpler. They could have said, the vault dwellers haven't been topside since the war. That would be one way to go. They haven't been topside since the war. They can't know what's going up there, and maybe they have a robot that they send. That would be super smart, right? They send a robot out, and scouts around, brings them back food. Then maybe the robot malfunctions or gets attacked by the raiders, and that's how they either know about raiders, or that's why they finally open the door to the surface, because they gotta fix the robot. They need the robot. It's bringing them food or artifacts or whatever. So they finally go, okay, we'll go outside, we'll fix the robot, and we'll come back. They go out to fix the robot. Raiders force themselves on the vault dwellers, and that's how they get it. Would have at least made more sense. I think the whole fake wedding thing was too complicated to do in the first episode. Maybe you could have built to that. Maybe you could have done a whole first episode just in the vault. How the vault life works, how life has changed since the days of the war, and the raiders keep trying to get in, but the various security measures keep them at bay. But then, after years of trying, they finally figure out a way. They finally, after years of trial and error, the raiders finally figure out a way to bypass the security just enough to lure them out and get it. And that's the start of the first episode, let's say. But they didn't do that. So, I don't really care what's going on in the vault. It's still not enough info on what's happening on the surface, quite frankly, and why the head of this scientist is important. Anyhow, meanwhile, Maximus has to fix his suit of armor. He gets it propped up, just like in the game, opens it up, and now he's got to fix a part. Okay. He just leaves it somewhere, rushes to this woman who wants 5 caps to fix it, but he only has 4. He has to sell one of his own teeth to get the 5th or 6th cap, gets it fixed, comes back, and of course he has to fight a gang over the power armor. Here's the thought. Walk the power armor to the woman who fixes it. Here's another thought. Close the power armor and secure it in some way. Pay a guy to watch it? I don't know. He got it to this spot where there was a crane. Can he not walk it to the woman who repairs it? Okay, let's say he can't. Didn't he have a gun? Apparently he lost his gun. I don't know. In Fallout, I always had a gun. And if I didn't have a gun, I'd immediately switch to a club. Seems like this character, Maximus, knew the wasteland at least a bit. There he is as a little kid. I don't know if I can find a shot of him. Okay. But, he doesn't seem to do the basic security measures that one would do in the wasteland. Oh, there we go. I got all these. There we go. There he is. It's a future episode. Anyhow, he has to fight a whole gang to get the power armor back, which he manages to do. At the same time, the Brotherhood of Steel finally catch up to him. They send him a new squire. He stupidly... Oh, this was another stupid scene. He calls back to the Brotherhood of Steel, or the Brotherhood of Steel contact him. Rather than tell them, well, Knight Titus is dead, he still wants to wear the armor. So he decides to pose as Titus, Michael Rappaport's character, who's dead. I'm not sure what the problem is there. I don't know if the Brotherhood of Steel would immediately give him a promotion, since he was already wearing the suit. I kind of think they would have rewarded him, right? So you're in the field as a squire. Your knight is killed. You manage to kill the abomination, and you save the power armor? Seems like the Brotherhood of Steel would go, hey, great job. You've saved the power armor. You've proven yourself a knight in the field. Now, maybe they wouldn't make him a knight. Maybe. Seems like they would reward him, though. Probably give him a better assignment. Maybe they would let him be a knight. I don't know. But, of course, for the show, he's going to pretend to be a knight. And in the process, he rips out his own radio because he realizes what a stupid move that was. And they send him another squire. So the squire comes. It's one of the guys from the first episode who picked on him. So now he's pretending to be Titus while this guy is a squire. Okay? He picks on him a little bit because the guy picked on him. But we learned a little bit about his character, which I did like. So then they trace down the ghoul. They find the severed head, or the headless body of the scientist. They track the ghoul, and they eventually catch up. Now, in the meantime, Lucy gets, she gets ambushed by this monster in the water. And if I learned anything from playing Fallout, the water's full of monsters. Like every body of water, there's always a bunch of monsters. Okay. So, and the night before, another thing Lucy does is she camps out and starts a fire. Remember in the, I guess it was the second episode where the scientist shows up and says, you ought to know better than to start a fire in the waste. Remember how everybody reviewing this show says Lucy really learned something? Apparently she hasn't learned that you can't light a fire outside in the open waste when you're sleeping by yourself there. Yeah, it's probably a bad idea. It's just going to attract the animals. But Lucy does that. Anyhow, when she gets to Hollywood, or the edge of Hollywood, she gets to some water. She decides to feed a deer, because it's cute. And then one of the abominations shows up, grabs the deer, eats it, and then grabs the head. Now, Lucy's trying to get the head back, and that's when Walton Goggins shows up and basically kidnaps her. Then Walton Goggins uses her as bait to try to lure the monster to capture it and get the head back. In the process, they manage to almost do that, but in the process, they destroy the drugs that's keeping Walton Goggins from, I think it's maybe, is it asthma or is it anti-feral ghoul serum? Maybe it's anti-feral ghoul serum. So now, Walton Goggins decides to abandon the quest for this head. Just completely abandons it. Takes Lucy, and I guess he's going to sell Lucy on the open market so he can get more drugs. I guess. he just leaves the area where the head is and abandons the dog. And now he's going to go, I don't know where. They don't tell you. I assume he's going to a town to sell Lucy. I guess. I mean, I know the game, so I can make that educated guess. Anybody watching the show is just like, well, they don't have the head. And in fact, in the scene when they're fighting the monster, Walter Goggins doesn't shoot the monster, which seemed he shot a bunch of other dudes in a previous scene. Why didn't he just shoot the monster? Does anybody want to explain that? He didn't seem to be particularly worried about Lucy, so hitting Lucy really not an issue for him at this point, but pretty sure he had a clean shot at the monster's head without hitting Lucy, or at least its enormous body, and he did have a pretty badass gun that blows holes through people. So anyhow, him and Lucy are walking along the waste, and then she asks him for water. He doesn't give it to her. They see some more radioactive water. At the same after they leave, Maximus and his squire have traced the ghoul all the way to where he had Lucy. Now they're in the actual water where the monster is, which seems like, again, a very stupid move. Very dumb in Fallout. And again, these are two guys, they're not vault dwellers. These are guys who at least had the training, like you're going to go into the wasteland and kill abominations. Maybe don't go into the water because it's full of abominations. So, during the fight against the abomination, the squire proves himself. Maximus saves him, and they kill the abomination and acquire the head and the dog. So now they have the head and the dog. So now Maximus can just go back to the Brotherhood of Steel, become the hero. I guess Lucy becomes a slave and is forgotten about, and Walter Goggins goes on to murder people. I mean, what is this show? It's all over the place. These characters don't have any reason to be friends. They really don't. And you're really taking a long time to get us there. Just start them as friends. It would have been so much easier. You know what I didn't get when I watched Scooby-Doo as a kid? I didn't get a long wind-up of how Fred got the van and how Shaggy met Scooby and how they started to eat Scooby snacks and then Velma and Daphne were involved. Like, I didn't need that. It just started. The show just started with them solving mysteries. Just start us in the wasteland with these three doing whatever they're supposed to do. Stop with the friggin' wind-up. Finally, the final scene is Walter Goggins in the past becoming the spokesman for Vault-Tec, and as it turns out, he's the thumbs-up guy, the little Fallout dude that's in the game. It's based on Walter Goggins. One slight problem is that guy has blonde hair. Walter Goggins doesn't have blonde hair. You know what would have been cool? If Walter Goggins, in all the flashback scenes, had blonde hair. Would have been awesome. Or if they had said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do this ad where you're our spokesman, but we'd like you to have blonde hair for some reason," and they just put a wig on him. It's Hollywood. They could do that, or they just, I don't know, it's the future. They spray his head and it instantly turns perfectly blonde, and they does the picture, and then they turn it right back. I mean, could have done that. Again, details matter. If you're going to go through the trouble to explain to us the origins of Fallout Boy, why not get all the details right? Why miss that opportunity? And and it's interesting because there's a shot of Walter Goggins. He sees the Vault-Tec guy up on a billboard and he shoots the face out. Oh, that he can shoot. That he can shoot with amazing accuracy. Couldn't shoot the monster. Nah, couldn't shoot the monster. But that, oh yeah, boom. So, yeah. Then the show kind of just ends. What's going to happen next week? I barely care. The MacGuffin is in the neck of the scientist. Oh, by the way, there's an amazing scene that Lucy. Remember how squeamish Lucy was about cutting off the guy's head? Remember how vault dwellers are generally squeamish and do-gooders? That you know. Remember how she was holding the head? I said, well, when she goes to camp out, she has the head wrapped up all of a sudden in a blanket. I don't know. Then she unwraps it, starts talking to the head, and starts going, what's so important about you? And of course, she gets zapped by the little thing in his neck, and I don't know, decides to put a tracker up his nose, which was a good thing because she lost the head, and now they're going to track it and get it back. So next week or next episode, I assume at some point she finally tells Walter Goggins, hey, don't sell me into slavery. I can find the head again. Or, Walton Goggins goes and he gets his drugs and then says, well, I'm going to sell you into slavery, get my drugs, and then, I don't know, try to go find the head, I guess. And then Lucy tells him, oh, I can find the head. It's on my Pip-Boy, and I can track it. And then Walton Goggins has to save her from the slavers that he just sold her into. That'll be my guess. Something like that. You know what I used to do in Fallout for money is just scrounge the wastelands because it's like full of stuff that you can trade. Apparently not in Los Angeles. No. I mean, I get it. It's a game, but how did these people get all the caps to begin with? Oh, they're scrounge the wasteland for them, or they find something to trade for. It's all over the wasteland. So, that could have been a thing. You could establish that too. I mean, if you're going for the feel of the game, you might as well do that. Honestly, again, it's just like we're caught up in a bunch of nonsense that really isn't great. The one great thing in this episode was Maximus's squire giving a little detail about how he thinks and how he feels and whatever. That kind of mapped out his character a little more. It made him like, oh, okay, so this guy isn't so bad. He's a regular human. Walton Goggins, not so much. He's kind of a jerk. And so far, he's the bad guy in this. I don't feel very sorry for Walton Goggins. Lucy is still unbelievably stupid. Hasn't figured out. You should probably find one of the many abandoned buildings in Fallout that isn't full of radiation and seal your stuff up in there so you can get some sleep in relative safety before, some monster of the waste just comes up and like bites your head off. Yeah, doesn't seem to work that way. The show's okay. I mean, it's not really growing on me. I can abandon it at any time. That's an issue. I don't feel a super hardcore connection to any of the characters. And I feel like Kyle MacLachlan is either very, very dead, sold into slavery, or he's somehow going to be revealed as being with the Raiders. I don't see any other way he could be alive. Either he's a slave somewhere, the Raiders sold him. Not exactly sure why the Raiders needed him and why they wouldn't just kill him the moment they get outside and eat him. Maybe that's what Lucy will find out. That would be kind of cruel and then kind of pointless in this whole thing. Like, she risked everything to go out into the wasteland and he's been dead for weeks. So I kind of think the show is going to reveal he's still alive and maybe he was in on Vault 32's raid in some way. And this was his way to, I don't know, get out of the vault? If he's not, then I don't know why the Raiders would keep him alive. I don't know why the Raiders would capture him. If they wanted to capture a slave, seems to me they would have captured the 6 slaves they had in the scene in episode 1 before they blew the place up for no apparent reason. Yeah, so, you know, again, I don't know how normies are following this. You know, it's the fascinating thing about the world of Fallout is partly the war itself and how it happened. Haven't really dipped into that at all. Not really. I don't even know what, you know, in the TV show, is it the CCP that did the bombing? I thought it was the war with China that set it all off. I guess it was China and Russia together. You know, and the alternate version of history where circuit boards weren't invented, a certain circuit wasn't invented. I'd like to see a little more of that lore used in this. Or, again, I just think if you jettison one of the characters, you could have just started with all 3 of them together, right? You know, it could have just started in an action scene. You know, Maximus or Lucy raiding something, she gets caught. The ghoul swings in, starts blowing dudes away, but they're trapped. And they're like, "Where's Maximus? Get over here, man!" And then he just bursts through a wall and kills all the dudes. And then together they're the trio or whatever they are. And why are they together? Well, it's a long story. And then through the series, you might see in flashback how they got together. You know, and now they're a team and they save each other and they're already friends. And then you don't have to go into why they're friends, unless it's relevant to the story. Then if they run into somebody, you know, one of the ghoul's ex-associates, since he's been alive so long, then you can roll that out and maybe show us a flashback before they met. It would give the show a bit of history. Instead, you're trying to build the history, and you guys aren't great at it. You know, it's taken a long time. And I'd be perfectly happy with a solid season of these guys kicking ass already and finding cool stuff in the waste. You know, maybe it could all be about Maximus trying to avoid the Brotherhood of Steel because he technically stole the power armor and they're hunting him. I don't know. I mean, there's lots of stories in there. Maybe Maximus and the ghoul could have been a team, and then they meet Lucy in the first episode, and they just take her on as a vault dweller. Maybe they just feel bad for her, and they don't like the Raiders. And I mean, why make it hard on yourself? Why make it all this convoluted nonsense? Just doesn't seem to be particularly interesting. I do like Lucy's quest to find her dad, though, but you know, that seems to fit with the game. But I just don't see, as a Fallout fan, why he should even be alive. They probably should have given us some indication of why the Raiders would capture him. I think they should have just, pulled him out of the vault, like at gunpoint with, aiming guns at everybody and saying, "We're getting out of here with our hostage." "No, don't come after me, Lucy." And then, they seal the door. And they maybe try to trade a hostage, but the Raiders aren't interested in any of their cohorts. Maybe you could have done something like that. I don't know. With the game, when the game rolled out, the first thing that happens is you climb out of the vault and you explore the town that's right next to the vault. And it's usually full of raiders and monsters and all kinds of crazy stuff. And then you keep going. And as the map unfolds, you find more crazy stuff and you start to figure out why you're doing all this. So, so the show does feel like a game, but a game's not a TV show. You know, to me, a TV show is, you know, The Fall Guy, the original The Fall Guy. Back in the 80s, he was a stuntman who solved mysteries. Right? So, what would you do in a Fallout series? There's a group of guys, they're mercenaries. What do? They solve problems. They acquire artifacts for people. Maybe they save people. You know, maybe they're part of one particular group or another. Or maybe they're their own deal. You know, maybe Maximus is too good for the Brotherhood, right? He was so noble and good. They kicked him out for being too noble and good. And now he started his own group where he is so friggin' committed to his principles. You know, the ghoul's just in it for the money. Lucy sort of admires him and follows him. I mean, that kind of stuff could be cool. Start a new chapter. I don't know. Anyhow, that's my review of Fallout. Maybe I'll do another one next week. I don't know. I'm getting a lot of requests to do it. So, what do you think? Did you like this third episode? Again, I feel like it's only part of a larger thing. And I really wish it could stand on its own, but I don't think it does. And that's it for me, Tony D, and probably Little Joan behind me. Check me out on Odysee, Bitchute, and Rumble for a more base takes. If you can find a more base take, I say take it. Thursday, I'll be at Juniper Village at Washington Square for my talk on how to hunt the Jersey Devil at 3 p.m. for residents and family. Please call ahead if you decide to go. I don't know if they'll let locals see that. I will be Saturday at the Giant Farm Mall in Medford, New Jersey. That's outside from 8 to 2. If it rains, it will be on Sunday. Hope to see you there. We'll see you